What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories, the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of the Locked On Rockets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we're going to be talking to Charles Mockler of Locked On Clippers, as Paul George will reportedly be out for the next 3 to 4 weeks after receiving the news that he has a torn ligament in his right elbow, the same elbow that saw him sidelined for 5 games already this season. Who steps up for the Clippers in Paul George's absence? Can the Clippers hold on for this next month or so while PG13 waits to be reevaluated? But first, a quick message from our friends over at Built Bar, because look, this holiday season, you can grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. That's Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat. And yes, high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. So many flavors to choose from, so many options. You're going to have a hard time choosing. Raspberry, mint brownie, cherry, double chocolate, cookies and cream. You can't go wrong with a single bar on their menu. My personal favorite, the coconut brownie chunk. It's where it's at. And you can check them out. Visit built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your very next order of the best tasting protein bars on the market. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Joining us now is Charles Mockler from Locked On Clippers. Now, Charles, we've got the sudden news, the immediate news that we're going to be addressing here. Paul George is going to be out for about 3 to 4 weeks while they figure out what's going on with this elbow injury he's dealing with, the UCL, what is it, ulnar collateral ligament in his right elbow. The same elbow that's already caused him to miss, 4 or 5 games already this season. Charles, what was your reaction when you found out about this news for the Clippers?
I mean, it's deflating, I think would be the best word for it. In the Kings game, after his first bucket, you saw him kind of snapping his elbow at one point, and the comfortability just wasn't ever there. Obviously, no one could have assumed it was torn right then, so we didn't know that. But it's just another blow in what feels like a season of kind of brutal injury or health and safety protocol blows that this team has had to go through. They put up a good fight against the Nuggets tonight, but man, yeah, I mean, this is a huge loss for the Clips. He played every game pretty much the first month of the season. He was playing at, MVP conversation level for sure on both ends of the floor. And, just puts more pressure on all the other guys and for Ty Lue to cobble together wins where they can, because it's also not like the Clippers have a draft pick they can really tank for. So, wins are still a good thing for this team. So it's definitely an interesting road ahead.
So right now on the season, the Clippers are now 3-4 without Paul George in the lineup. How optimistic are you that the Clippers can at least, hope, trade water while he's out, while they, wait and then reevaluate him in about 3 to 4 weeks? Or is there just kind of a lot of like, oh, well, this might be the end of the Clippers season. No Kawhi, no PG. Where's the mentality at?
So it was already kind of a house money year, right, with no Kawhi, and with kind of the injuries they've been dealing with since Game 2, with Marcus Morris having to be out and Serge being out. It was always kind of a house money year, but now we can really lean into that more, I guess. The Clippers have a very hellish part of their schedule coming up. Right now, they just lost to the Nuggets. They're going to play the Nets in a back-to-back. They have a back-to-back on New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day in Toronto, in Brooklyn. And then they have a game, I believe, either in Minnesota or in Los Angeles, just with a day in between that game in Brooklyn after New Year's Day. And things just kind of get worse in January. If the Clippers are at 500 at the end of January, we should be ecstatic at that point, because it's a tough part of the schedule. Marcus Morris is going to be back. He's out of health and safety protocols, which is good, but Reggie's still in there. There might be some discomfort with Luke Kennard. So, I mean, there's definitely hope. This team isn't going to roll over any game at all, but it's tough sledding for sure.
Who becomes the leader of this Clippers team with no PG out there?
I mean, well, since Reggie Jack, I mean, you could point, I think it's going to be a collective effort, honestly. At this point, we're down so many guys who kind of have that role. Marcus Morris coming back is going to be great. He's a great teammate. He's been very vocal ever since he's really been with the Clippers. He's been a guy that, especially the young guys, can look up to. He definitely checks them and helps them kind of figure out how to play professional basketball. And then I think it's going to be kind of a nightly basis. I think it's going to be based on what you're bringing to the floor at that point. When Reggie Jackson gets back, he's going to be looked to be a scorer for sure. Brandon Boston Jr. is a rookie. He was a 51st pick. And there's going to be some nights where the Clippers kind of, as he goes, they will go. There's going to be some scoring droughts, and he's a guy who can help bring the Clippers out of them. The other side of the ball is something still to kind of get figured out. But at this point, the Clippers just kind of need to take any momentum they can get, even in small scenarios on a game-by-game basis, and just run with it.
Yeah, not even setting aside just like the leadership aspect of it is, you're missing 25 points a night from Paul George. Where do you even, begin to try and make up that ground? You said, before, it's going to be probably a collective effort, but do you have a couple guys in mind that are going to be looked to as the guys that are going to have to step up over this next stretch?
Luke Kennard's been playing very well so far this year, especially when you consider what he looked like last year with this team. He's going to be looked at he's been shooting, upper 40s from three. So he's going to need to get those attempts up for sure. Nick Batum kind of does everything, but they might have to rely on his scoring a little bit more just with some of these wonky lineups we're going to see out there. Terrence Mann is someone people have wanted to see make a jump, especially after his fantastic performance in the playoffs. Kind of a little to be desired there so far this year, but from outside, it's going to be, Kennard and Reggie, and then whatever holes we can patch up with, these hardship contracts and stuff like that. We hope we can get some quality minutes.
Yeah, look, Clippers aren't the only team in the league that's dealing with, lineup inconsistencies and guys moving in and out. And so it's not, nobody's going to, have a pity party for the Clippers at this point.
No one ever does anyway. So I think that'll be fine. Yeah.
But look, every time I watch the Clippers play, especially, it seems, it feels like on any given night, anyone on the team is capable and ready to step up to the plate and deliver in a big way. How much credit does Ty Lue deserve for kind of, fostering that type of environment, atmosphere, and also just for the defense, which ranks top 5 and has kept this Clippers team relevant in a stacked Western Conference?
Ty Lue's been fantastic for this team. There were glimpses of it, when Doc Rivers was the coach. That 18-19 team was one that was really fun to watch. Just never saying die, that whole attitude. But this year, guys really understand their role. I think there's a big difference in how Ty Lue prepares guys, telling them exactly what's expected of them within the system of the offense and the defense, so they know what they're supposed to be doing. And there's not some kind of weird ambiguity, like, trust me, we got this mentality. There's a very open line of communication for what you're supposed to be doing, which has guys believing in themselves, which is huge. It carried over from last year from the regular season. There were some absurd wins. There was a game against the Hawks where I think Ty Lue benched all 5 starters at one point because he was so upset. And then the bench came in and played great. And that carried into the playoffs, and that just keeps going. In a season like this where you just have to deal with absences, with COVID and all that stuff, all you can do is continue to just the next man up mentality. And thankfully, I think Ty Lue deserves most of the credit, if I'm being honest. And Paul George really stepped up as well in the absence of Kawhi Leonard, just kind of getting guys ready and focused on what needs to be done by showing he can get it done on both ends.
You threw out that term house money earlier, Charles. Playing with the house money now, what are you most looking forward to over this next month for this team?
Oh, man. Probably the youth movement. We kind of have a lot of known commodities. We know what Luke Kennard can do. We know what Marcus Morris can do. We've seen glimpses of what, Brandon Boston Jr. can do on the offensive end. He had 27 versus Celtics earlier this year, which was very fun to watch. Kind of peaks and valleys for him right now, but it's the young guys. It's Keon Johnson, Jay Scrubb, once he's out of health and safety protocols. He's in a very interesting story. A community college guy who ended up on a roster, which is fantastic. But it's the youth movement, really, and just seeing kind of what Ty Lue can do with these guys to get them ready for whatever happens down the road after this season, depending how long PG is out.
Speaking of youth movement, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about a fan favorite of mine, one Isaiah Hartenstein, who seems to have started to flourish with this Clippers team before, unfortunately, being sidelined. Hey, you guessed it, another injury. Yeah. But what has he been like for this Clippers team? What have you liked out of him, as part of the Clipper land?
Real quick, so I got to correct myself. Jay Scrubb was a JUCO guy, not a community college guy. Just one of the best JUCO scorers of all time. Hartenstein has been a revelation for this team. He pushed Serge Ibaka out of the rotation. He played so well in Serge Ibaka's absence that Ty Lue kind of had to be like, dude, I'm really sorry, but this guy, he passes well. He's energetic. He commits probably too many fouls, but it shows that he's really trying on the defensive end. But Ty Lue raves about this guy. Every post game he has, he talks about there's passing ability. Him and Luke Kennard have a great chemistry. Anytime he's the roller, he's been pretty good. He's been a spark, and he's a guy who, again, the Clippers are going to need to rely on to provide some kind of, just different look for these opposing defenses to see. But I'm not sure if the Clippers can even keep Isaiah Hartenstein after this season. He's bet on himself. He came to the Clippers to compete, and he competed with Harry Giles, and obviously won that round. So I just hope the Clippers can get as much success with him as they can this season, because I'm not sure he might outplay whatever the Clippers can offer him after this year.
Well, I know you're going to keep us up to date for all of that over at Locked On Clippers. Charles, appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me, man.
Thank you so much. Maybe next time we'll talk after a Clippers win.